Here's the thing to remember about the Infinity Train. It's not about the desk to something. It's about the whatever. Infinity Train Season 4, sadly, the final season. That is legitimately a bummer to me. That it's not going to get more seasons after this, but I've still seen all 4, and I get to talk about it. Season 4 it's funny. In some ways, it is a departure, but not from like the format or concept of the show, just from the way it's been progressing. Because the way it's worked up until now has been each new season after the first picked up on someone who we already met in the previous season and does a vastly different overall thing with them. Lake's story was completely different from Tulip's, and Grace's story was completely different from either of theirs. Whereas here, we have Min and Ryan, and what this season is honestly what when I first found out that Infinity Train was a show where there is turnover and it's not the same lead characters every season, and it's a little bit of an anthology that way. Once I heard that, this was what I had expected additional seasons to be, but they weren't until this season. So it's a little bit of an odd duck because it is good. It's very good at what it's doing, but what it's doing feels somehow a little bit ordinary. Now, I am going to talk about this thing fairly openly, so before I get into spoilers, let me just say that overall I would probably rate this season as the weakest, but that is not bad. It is still very good television. There are some parts of it, some segments that are amazing. There's a character in this named Kez who I love. Kez is amazing. But if I were to go back and say, I want to rewatch Infinity Train, this is probably the last one that I would pick to rewatch. I'm not sure how I'd probably do the second season as my favorite. Third season, I go back and forth between that and the first because I think the third season is better than the first, but it's also a hard watch. You can check my review for why that was. So those are on pretty even footing. This one scooching just underneath, but it's still really good, and I do recommend it. So now I'm going to talk more openly about it. So this does in some way tie into the previous seasons insofar as time. They don't make a big deal out of this, but timeline-wise, this is actually chronologically the first of the ones we've seen. There are little hints as to that in terms of its timing and what's going on because there's some dated references, dated tech. But more specifically, when we initially see not really one, but just one as the conductor, it's not doing the back and forth voice. And Amelia's there, as she was at the end of season 3, trying to make amends. But given what happens in I think it's the second to last episode, or it might even be the last episode, when one of the stewards shows up and speaks with her voice instead of the actual conductor's voice and basically says, we're all on our own. That to me says that we witnessed not the moment, but we witnessed the moment in time when Amelia took over the train. So that makes this chronologically the first of the 3, that's kind of interesting, but it doesn't tie in a massive way. It's a little bit more of an Easter eggy way. So this one is definitely, in terms of the story it's telling, pretty analogous to the first season. Here's a couple of people. They are coming on the train. They've got problems to solve. Let's see if they can do it. That first episode, the use of the split screen. There's an extended sequence so the viewer can get to know Ryan and Min. And that split screen use is phenomenal. I often tend to find split screen either distracting or gimmicky. Like, it doesn't add anything, it's just a affectation. But no, this is brilliant use of split screen. This is phenomenal. So, like, that's really good. There's an interesting little tiny detail that I noticed, which is that one, as the conductor mentions that they'll either sort themselves out or they'll die, which is interesting to me because it was something, I hadn't mentioned this before, but it was something that I kind of wondered. Very obviously, the passengers were being put in dangerous situations, and we have seen one of them die at the end of season 3, but I did wonder, is that something that is supposed to be able to happen? Because it would make more sense that, we put them here so they can sort themselves out. That doesn't mean you kill them for it. These people's offenses, their problems aren't death sentence worthy. But I still felt like the danger that we saw was real, but for various reasons. So, like, in the first season, the correct conductor is not in control. So maybe under Amelia, people can die when otherwise they wouldn't be able to. Second season, we're following Lake, who is not a passenger but a denizen. We know denizens can die. And then third season, we do witness the death of Simon, but I found myself wondering, since 1-1 is back in control at that point, I found myself wondering, like, is the fact that his number spiked so high the reason why that was allowed to happen, and would otherwise there be safety measures involved? So what we find out early on from just something that the conductor, one, says is just, well, then they'll die. Oh, okay. And it almost makes you wonder if that was a factor in Amelia taking over, in addition to her own not being very good at processing her own grief, as we know from season 1. So it does make me wonder a little bit. So that's an interesting tie-in to things. The two characters are pretty good. The season does a good job of pacing out how they learn what's going on, because there was only about an episode where Min was kind of insufferable when he thought that Ryan was the only one who actually had to change it all, and then he was super condescending and really a dick. And, like, I get it, it's consistent with his character, but I'm like, I don't know if I can hang with you, dude. But, like, by the end of the episode, he realized, oh, we both have to change. I'm like, thank you. Holy crap. But seeing their relationship and seeing the way that it is stressed and strained, and seeing two people who are both trying to escape, because obviously we've seen passengers with companions before, but having them both be passengers who have been with each other from the beginning, that was a little twist on the idea. It was kind of interesting. And I mentioned Kez. I love Kez. Kez is the most amazingly lighthearted, sweet, just kind of flighty, yeah, things are all okay here, okay, bye, kind of entity that I really love. And I especially love the fact that at the end she gets called out for, well, not ever owning up to anything ever. So yeah, she's carefree and kind of fun, but she doesn't even acknowledge the damage that happens sometimes because of the way she moves through life. And just having a good attitude isn't enough to be able to get away with that. So as endearing as she was, I really liked that was singled out for, like, you have to take ownership of your own screw-ups, and at the very least you need to freaking apologize. And that was well done. The antagonist end of things is not especially strong, because it's basically this cluster of beings that Kez had ticked off. And they're fine. They're, like, appropriately weird for the Infinity Train, which is good. But, like, none of them are particularly engaging or threatening. Because obviously in season 1, there was the conductor and Amelia pretending to be the conductor, and there were the stewards, but there was also just the sense of what the hell is even going on carrying us through, and that felt like a threat. And then we get to season 2, and we've got the sort of cop characters chasing after Lake that are pulling a lot of weight, and they actually worked quite well and could be both entertaining and threatening and menacing. Season 3, we've got well, by the end, Simon. And watching him fall apart, you felt the growing threat of his very presence. So that worked really well. There just isn't a strong antagonistic force here. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be a character, because like I said, in the very first season, the antagonistic force was kind of the train itself, just because us as viewers, just like Tulip as a passenger, didn't know what the hell was even going on. So, but it is a little bit lacking in that area as well. But while I'm kind of sorry that this is the last season in terms of, well, no, I'm very sorry it's the last season. I would like to have seen what more they could do with it. I can't help but feel that deciding to end it at this point kind of left them going out on their weakest note. But not in a way that made it seem like, oh, well, they don't have any more ideas. No, I'm sure there were plenty more things they could have done. Be they revisits or whole new concepts or whatever. But this show was great. And I really hope that my reviewing it might convince at least a few people to go and check it out if you haven't already. Infinity Train Season 4. What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. I got a Patreon. That's how I'm able to afford things like HBO Max and keep this entire operation up and running. But if you are not able to support me there are rewards for every tier. But if you are unable, then like, share, subscribe helps me out as well. No pressure, though. Take a relaxed attitude around here. So, I mean, you can just come on back next time you need a break. This video wouldn't have been possible without the support of my patrons, and I want to give special thanks to Jared Boyce, MJ, The Doctor, Tracy Scrabbit, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Caitlin Schwartz, Edelon, Robin Moore, Ross Schultz, and Shayla Gorley. Thanks so much.